Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back. I'm Phil Naylor, psychotherapist, and I'm just going to kind of continue on kind of a long dialogue that I suppose I've been having over these several sessions, these recordings that I've been doing, kind of because they're all kind of related, and one kind of builds on the other. So, last time we talked about influences of our childhood development on how we think and formulate our reactions, and a lot of that to uh, challenging things that happen in our lives, adverse experiences and traumas, and how they shape us. So, this talk is kind of building on that. And this is probably the most central talk, but this is kind of the core of so many things that we deal with in psychotherapy, and that how I approach working with people, that this is a very important one. So this one may be kind of a little bit longer. We might break it up into two. I'm not sure. But pay attention to this because there's a lot of important principles. Okay. So, and this is the understanding of what is anxiety and what is trauma and how does it work. A lot of people, it might be sound like a simple question or not, a basic question that we should know about, but most people aren't given a really solid explanation and grounding into what is anxiety and what is trauma and how does it affect us, because it really does shape a lot of our reactions and a lot of our day to day. And that starts in childhood and it's built on as we go. So, traumas and negative experiences probably influence our day to day reactions more than positive experiences. So, it's all the stuff that causes our dysfunctional behaviors and dysfunctional patterns. And that's why it's important to know. So, when I work with people, I start off with giving them a solid grounding and a framework to understand what is anxiety anyway. And once you kind of, and a lot of this, what I'll be saying is, a lot of you would probably heard bits and pieces of it, but not really maybe quite packaged up in this way. So that kind of gives a comprehensive view. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll say, oh, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I do that. Right. So that's the sort of kind of aha kind of thinking, hopefully you'll get from this. Okay. So, what is anxiety? Well, first of all, I have to understand it's both a physiological and a psychological phenomena, because physiologically, there's a physiological reaction or response going on with us. And it's also matched by our thinking and feeling and behavioral patterns, So there's something going on in our head about anxiety, and there's something going on in a body to do with anxiety. And to understand that it's a kind of a two-phase thing is important. Okay. But let's start with the physiological aspects. So when you say, well, what is anxiety? Well, it is in anger as well. Okay, so I'll just a side note that I work with anger. If somebody brings an anger problem to me, I work with it the same way as I work with an anxiety problem, because they're two sides of the same coin. It's like just a different aspect of the same phenomena. So I'll explain this in a moment. So the fight flight mechanism is something that we evolved and developed in us as people to help us respond to physical danger. And we're not unique in this. All animals have the fight flight response. It's about, if you encounter a physical danger, you have to have some way to respond to that, because we evolved in the world, over millions of years, and that job one was to live, right? We had to just live and survive in order to kind of propagate the species and carry on. And so the fight flight mechanism is a fundamental foundational thing to help us cope with a physical encounter. And so it's designed to do something like this. Okay. So you're walking through the woods by yourself, and it's 10,000 years ago, or even today. It's the exact same thing. You're walking through the woods and the bushes start shaking and rattling. And you start to pause a little bit and you think, what is that? Is that like my friend from the village or the camp? Or is that the bear or the tiger? And if it's a bear or a tiger that comes through, and it's an angry bear or tiger, what do you have to do to try and survive? Well, basically, you have three main responses. One, you're going to have to run like heck to get out of there. Run as fast as you can to get out of there. Two, you're going to have to fight that thing. You're cornered. It's too late. It's them or me. so, so we're going to have to fight, or we go into the freeze or the hide response. So it's like, maybe I won't move. Maybe it won't see me, or maybe I won't be a threat to it. Leave me alone. And there's some other kinds of responses that go with the freeze response as well that I won't go too much into detail, but essentially there's a dissociative response that comes with freeze as well. So that, if we are going to get torn from limb to limb by a wild animal, maybe we'd rather not be there. So it's a way of kind of detaching from the kind of our body and psychologically. So the horror isn't quite as bad. So, but anyway, let's just stick with the fight flight piece of that rather than the freeze for the moment. So, okay, so now the fight flight mechanism is part of our autonomic nervous system. Okay, the autonomic nervous system is a thing that think automatic. It's everything that keeps our heart beating and lungs breathing and blood pressure regulated and all the manufacture of our blood cells and all those sorts of things. Everything that's kind of running on automatic that is about keeping us alive, that's our autonomic nervous system. So it runs on automatic. It's, as we talked about before, it's unconscious. It's beyond our conscious control. We're not aware of it most of the time, and most of the time we can't really influence it that much on a conscious level. So it's an unconscious mechanism. Okay, so it's a survival mechanism, so it's rooted in there, and it's rooted in the more primitive parts of our nervous system. Some people talk about like the lizard brain. We have these three main sections of our brain. The sort of reptilian brain, and then there's mammalian brain. It's sort of a layer over that, and so they're more sophisticated animals. On top of that, we have the neocortex, which is the kind of thing that makes us more human. The thinking and analytical capacities and all of that. So anyway, it's kind of more part of that mammalian brain. So basically part of our nervous system is just geared to scanning the environment and sorting it into two basic categories, safe, dangerous, friend, foe, threat, non-threat, etc. Okay. And so once we put it into one category or the other, that determines how we're going to physiological respond. So if the bushes are rattling and our friend from the village comes walking through, we go, oh, that's safe. I can relax and we're all good. Right? So if it's the bear or the tiger that comes through, though, our brains will just go, that's dangerous. Okay, I got to get the hell out of here now. Okay, and what does it do? Your body responds. It gives you a shot of adrenaline. Okay, you have that rush of energy. You often feel, those butterflies in your stomach. Your heart rate starts going up. You start to breathe fast and shallow. Your pupils dilate. There's tension comes in your body, and you don't really realize it, but your blood supply starts to migrate into your arms and legs from your center core, because that's where you're going to need it. If you're going to have to run or fight, we need all our blood supply in our arms and legs. We need our heart pumping it there. We need to be able to get in oxygen fast to charge, all the oxygen into our bodies, and we have that, shot of adrenaline through the sort of energy through the adrenaline. We've got the stress hormones that go through. We've got all these sort of a whole physiological chemistry kit that's flooding our system. Okay, and that's so that we can resource our bodies as quickly as possible to deal with whatever we need to deal with. So whether we need to run or fight or climb the tree or whatever it is. Okay, so that is below our conscious level. As a matter of fact, we start to respond before we even fully recognize consciously what's going on. So our brain says, dangerous now. But our conscious minds are too slow. If we're left it to our unconscious mind, we'd be like, what is that? Is that a bear? Is that friendly bear, an angry bear? I don't. So that's too slow. It's like you're going to be dead. So no, our subconscious autonomic nervous system just recognizes danger. You do this and get out of there. Now, how traumatic that situation is kind of depends on a number of factors. One is our past knowledge and experiences with that particular thing. So if we came from a village where there's a lot of bear lore. A lot of people were killed by bears, and there's lots of stories about that. And be careful of bears. So we're maybe we've witnessed things happening, so we've got a history, and so that history kind of defines how dangerous we think bears are, and also how imminently dangerous or life-threatening that situation is. So if the bear situation where the bear kind of rustles through the bushes and sticks his head out and sniffs around, then turns around and kind of waddles off, well, that might be scary, but is it traumatic? Probably not as traumatic as if the bear starts attacking you. Okay, so your life is physically in danger and threatened. So let's pretend that you're out in the woods and you do encounter a bear. You have a pretty significant encounter. The bear comes after you, you feel life is threatened, but all of your mechanisms kick in and you manage to get out of there. And you get back to your village or your camp, and everybody celebrates because you survived the bear, and then all your systems start to come back down to normal. Okay. So now you're safe, you're relaxed, and you're good. Okay, but now that you've had that bad encounter with the bear, what's going to be going on for you next time you're walking through the woods, especially not long after having an encounter like that with the bear? Okay, so, well, probably going to be scoping for the bear. You're not going to be kind of relaxed going to the woods. Oh, it's a beautiful day. Look at the sun shining, the birds singing. It's be like, no, you're going to be, what's that sound? What's that moving over there? Is that a bear? Is that a bear footprint over there? Is a piece of bear fur in the bark? So we're scanning our environment. We become what we call hypervigilant. Okay, we're on edge. We're looking for the signs of the bear. Yeah, because our bodies remember. It says, I remember last time what happened through the woods. There's bears around here. What happens when the bear comes? That sticks in our brains, and it says we don't want that to happen again, or keep your eyes out for that. And so, because the idea is that if you can spot the signs of the bear before this bear spots you, and you can get out of there and survive, right? And so we don't actually have to encounter the bear to have a significant response about the bear. So if you're walking along, there's a nice fresh bear footprint right in front of you, you might go, oh my God, and so you full flight, and you start running, you're out of there. So this is part of our higher cognitive functions as well, that we're detecting signs of a previous experience in order to avoid that. And so we're tuned in for those things that could affect us negatively. Okay. All right. So let's fast forward to present day. And say you're walking through the woods, but there are no bears. You're just walking through the trails around a town. It's safe. There's no bears anywhere in the neighborhood, or, far away, there's bears. So there's no actual bears, but you believe there's a bear anyway. Okay, so maybe you heard a rumor. Somebody said they thought somebody had a rumor there was a bear around the area or something like that. Maybe it was just a big dog or something. Who knows? But if you've had a bad experience with a bear before, and you think there's a bear, what's going to be going on for you, right? Are you going to be relaxed walking through the woods? No, you're going to be like extra hyper vigilant. So, oh my God, what's that sound? What's that over there? And say you was a big dog prints right there. Maybe you thought there were bear prints. You'd freak out and start running or something. Even if friends said there's no bears around here, if you believe there's a bear, you're reacting as if there is one. Okay. In other words, it doesn't matter if the bear is real or if the bear is imaginary. Okay. So this is where we have a distinction between people and animals, because we have this higher cognitive function. We have a memory and we have an imagination. So we can imagine that there's a bear. We can project a scenario into the future, imagine what would happen if we encountered a bear. We can remember past experiences and compare them to now. What happened the last time I had that bear, or something like that happened, right? So we have all this kind of information feeding us, and so all our brains need to know is what the other part of our brain is thinking. If it's saying there's a bear around here, our sort of lizard brain is saying, what, a bear? And it just responds as if there's one. And so, but this is where we're different than animals. Okay. So animals have the same fight flight response, but they have the mammalian brain. That imagination and stuff is part of our higher cognitive functions. So they have the same response, but there actually has to be a bear there. There has to be an actual predator that they're encountering. Okay, so if their senses aren't detecting anything, then it's all good. They're not imagining that there's bears, or a wolf or whatever. So if there is one, then there's full flight fight, same response, right? Oh, danger, sees the wolf or whatever it is, and it starts running, and it's, pumping, and its heart's beating, and it's running like mad, and it's full of adrenaline and all that. So it has that same response. But if there isn't a predator, if its senses aren't detecting a predator, they have a way of just kind of shaking off. There's a little kind of shake they do to shake it out of their nervous system, and then they kind of calm down, and then they carry on, and then they're good. It's as if there isn't any predators. So they don't worry about, you don't have anxious deer going through the woods thinking, I wonder if there's wolves around here. What if this happens? What if that happens? It says, no, if they're not detecting anything, then we're safe. Okay. And they're acting as if it is safe until it's not safe. Okay. So they're in the moment, then they're not, projecting into the future, remembering the past or anything like that. So now the other thing, so we have this phenomena, it doesn't matter if it's real or not. So we can imagine something is going to happen, and we have a physiological response to that. The other thing is that not all our threats nowadays are physical threats. We don't often, back in the day, 10,000 years ago, there was all kinds of physical threats, wild animals and other tribes and weather and terrain, survival was a big thing, physical survival. We don't have to worry so much about a physical survival nowadays, so being physically attacked very often. It can still happen, but for the most part, depending on where you live too, I suppose, right? But for the most part, we're not worried about our physical survival and needing that. But there's other kinds of threats. We have social psychological threats. So there's threats to your security, for example. There's the idea about what if you lost your job, or what if you lost your house? What if your whole kind of financial world fell apart? So that's a kind of security threat. Or there's threats to our kind of social relationships. So, some people may be worried about their partner leaving them or finding somebody else or something like that. Or if you have social anxiety, you kind of worry about, oh, what if I go to that party and people are looking at me and thinking I'm weird or something, and I don't know what to say. And, it's like they get all anxious about this sort of social judgment and stuff. Or what if I start that new job and nobody likes me, and or there's threats to our sense of self. What if I fail at this? What if I'm no good? What if I suck? So all of those are types of threats, but they're not physical threats. You're not going to get torn from limb to limb by a wild animal, but they're a type of threat. The thing is, though, our bodies don't distinguish between types of threats. To our bodies or subconscious mind, a threat is a threat is a threat, and it only knows one way to deal with it. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's a physical threat or a social psychological threat, and it doesn't matter if the threat is real or if the threat is imaginary. Okay, as long as our brains are saying this thing is happening, our bodies go, oh my God, gives you that shot of adrenaline and goes through the whole bit, right? So we have that same adrenaline response if we think, if we consider what it's going to be like to have some sort of unlikely or nervous social encounter of some sort. It's public speaking. People get all afraid, like you're not going to be attacked, but you're afraid. You're under threat. It still falls into the threat category. Okay, so given all that information, okay, we have the ability to bombard ourselves with threat thoughts all day long, right? What if this happens? What if that happens? It's like, oh, what if that happened? Oh yeah, this, that. Oh, every time you have that little thought, you get this like little shot of adrenaline. We get these stress hormones going through us, we get our heart rate goes up, depending on the severity, like how anxious, you can get this little shots of anxiety, like little micro shots of adrenaline that go through you, so, or I forgot to do this thing, big flood thing. Okay. The other thing is that trauma is also about bad stuff that did happen to us. So if we also remember a bad thing that happened to us, that also creates that physical thing. It's like, if you had a bad car accident or something, you hear the idea of flashbacks, like it just pops into your head. You remember the car coming at you, and it's like that comes into your head, and you get that rush, oh my God, so that's kind of what PTSD is about. It's like we kind of keep harking back to the bad thing that happened, and our bodies keep flooding ourselves with adrenaline and having a bad response to that. So whether we're remembering a bad thing that did happen or worrying about a bad thing that might happen, we're stuck with all of those. And so now if we have the ability to bombard ourselves all day long, and we do that, so it can be threat, 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 we're having this physiological response to that threat. And now it starts to be in your system all the time. Okay. So it kind of gets conditioned into your nervous system. So it's like we're always like that. We're always getting these little shots of adrenaline. We're always kind of getting, ratcheted up. That's as if you're a person who's anxious, and we're likely to be anxious based on sort of stuff that happened to us in the past. We talked about the childhood events. We have bad things, and we kind of go into fight flight response as a preparation for that, and then we kind of become hyper vigilant to similar things that remind us of those things that happened to us in the past. And then then we start to kind of incorporate that becomes part of our day-to-day of who we are. And now we've got a response that's conditioned into our nervous system. Okay, so now we're always kind of like that. We've always got these sort of stress hormones in our bodies. We're always hyper vigilant to what if the bad thing happens, And so that becomes now our new normal. Okay. And we always have get the fight flight response. It's meant to not to be around all the time. It's meant to ramp up when the discrete bad thing happens, and then kind of calm back down when it's gone. The bear's here, it ramps up, get away from the bear, get back to safety, it calms down. Okay, so, and it's not meant to be active all the time in your system all the time. And with our kind of imaginative abilities and all that, it can be in our system all the time. It's becomes more like, instead of the discrete encounter with the bear, it's more like you're camped out in the woods and the bear's prowling around your tent all night. So you can't relax. You can't, you can't kind of be calm in a easy, good space.